Welcome back to the welcome back to the techno-communism conversation. Having some technical difficulties. I started the stream and did 15 minutes I wanted to do, and it got disconnected. It didn't even show up in the feed. So I'm gonna start again. I'm gonna hopefully avoid this by keeping an eye on the connection, the Wi-Fi. And also switching between this app and a very simple app, the Writer app, on Android. But it's better to just only look at my notes on the other device, I think. So I talked about a program, a film that came out recently called the Antisocial Network, which again, I've tagged some people in this, and I would maybe recommend this film to those people for the reasons that I'll describe. I won't recommend films to people who are not well-versed in revolutionary thought or scientific socialist thought, for the simple reason that they just have no business being alive at all. They need to be better educated in other areas before they would, a point of this kind would even serve them. But the point here is that this film is basically, it's not exactly about social networks as the word is understood. In a word, in a word or two, it describes the transition from the 4chan message board into the decentralized organization, such as it is, known as Anonymous, in the course of the 2000s and 2010s. And it's an okay movie. Scientific socialists would probably find that this semi-satirical approach to activism is a little nauseating, and rightly so. And not all people who identify as anonymous are guilty of this today. This is the most high-profile people of this organization of a certain time. But there are scientific socialists who affiliate with this organization now, of course. But a good way of looking at this problem is a way of looking at how scientific socialists are perceived by those of the capitalist class, the larger world, which is we are perceived as people who are just looking for an exciting aesthetic, which unfortunately is sometimes the case, looking for their tribe, looking for subcultural factors along these lines, and not what it is. Serious thinkers and actors trying to end, as the Sovietologists would say, the exploitation of man by man. Or that's, they would say that historically, but obviously that includes women. It's not, it's maybe not wholly inaccurate to say the exploitation of men and women by man, just as it is not wholly inaccurate to say that this problem of private wealth and elitism is held up by patriarchal mechanisms to a high degree. There's the analysis of this anonymous profile, or this anarchist profile who is yet to make a serious foray into the study of revolutionary thought, it's easy for scientific socialists to dismiss them and correct. If you're doing that, you'll get no argument from me. But it overlooks some important things as well. One thing that this film stated, and it's not wholly inaccurate, was that every time for a certain period of time, every time anonymous, it could be anyone by definition, did anything in this period of years, it was reported on by the media, this essential force, the anti-establishment, and maybe there are. I'm certain there are scientific socialist thinkers who say, "Oh, this was all artifice." Right? These people were never real. They were making a joke. Just as people would say this about the Weather Underground, right? They were never real. This was COINTELPRO type thing. And it's absolutely certain that there's a kernel of truth to that. But this pig-headed persona, this revolution-minded person who is not a genuine organizer or well-versed in revolutionary thought, a person who's basically not read Marxist-Leninism, or who is on some level or to some degree anti-communist, this to disregard this kind of thing is to lose revolutionary momentum. Think of what the world of serious revolutionary thinkers was in 1905. If you had said to virtually all of those people, what shall we do to build a state socialism in 1905? Virtually all of these people would have said, there is no prospect for building a state socialism in your life or mine, and the thing to do is to raise conscientiousness and educate everyone uniformly, and at this time it will be possible to build state socialism on every continent. There's people who believe this today. I'm kind of one of them, I guess, on a certain level. But the point is, state socialism was built then a few short years later, and people had to rethink that analysis in light of that success. And the point there is that this was born out of revolutionary furor, which, if you disregard this anonymous type profile wholly, I think you eliminate the possibility for, and this is the logic of sometimes certain kinds of social chauvinists are criticized for, and rightly so. But there has to be a way to build this organization in the country where you live, and that requires things that are ultimately, in hindsight, going to be a little ugly relative to what the purist of hearts of the scientific socialist might have preferred. I'm guilty of this. This prospect of the ending of exploitation of man by man. The situation is further compounded today in this 21st century because after this world of, say, post-1918, when the Russian Civil War occurred, where the imperialist powers, perhaps for our purposes most notably the United States, formed into a Voltron of defense of elitism to fight the scientific establishment of the scientific socialist state. in the U.S. That became the USSR. They killed many hundreds of thousands of people, of their own and more, of people in the USSR, to stop this thing from being established, because they began to recognize that if a state socialism became a thing, that it could and will ultimately spell the end of private wealth. And so private wealth organized, and this was so the birth of state socialism around this time was the birth of true fascism and not kind of slapdash elitism. And you say, well, the United States hasn't always acted uniformly anti-communist. For example, much of its activity is more about seeding chaos and then siphoning off resources here or there. That's what That's basically what's the only thing that the United States does as an organization. It is use its $1 trillion military-industrial complex to create chaos and thus solidify private wealth in that region, stealing, but that the United States is still the world's most successful fascist and anti-communist. Those are the same thing. Fascist and anti-communist entity by far, for operating in this way, for becoming a hegemon and being in a position to operate in this way. It's nothing compared to other avowedly fascist entities who did not kill the planet. Right? The United States and its economic system that it's kind of foisted upon the rest of the world has effectively doomed humanity, and we could stop that by the overthrow of these fascist entities and the abolition of these particular sectors: the military-industrial complex, fossil fuels, livestock systems. These are the three offenders that we could say bear the lion's share of responsibility for this. And even among people well-versed in revolutionary thought, you would say 99% correct on all of this, compared to the anonymous person who has a class you would say is 75% correct on all of this. Even among those revolutionary activists and thinkers, where is the righteous man, right? If you say, well, okay, so you want to abolish the military-industrial complex, would you also fight to abolish fossil fuels? Would you also fight to abolish livestock systems? You won't find a person who's doing all of that. It's one in many millions, really. It needs to be like about 10% of the population or something for it to become effective in this respect. So there's virtually no one who is uniform in their fight against elitism, in their fight against private wealth, and in their concern for ending capitalism's climate apocalypse. This personality virtually does not exist. So anything that you would say about the anarchist, to a lesser degree, you can say about the scientific socialists. They're still driving around in SUVs eating cheeseburgers. They should still be beaten, in my view, and that needs to change. I had one or two other points in the live stream that was lost, but I'm going to switch gears instead and talk about the concepts of cybernetic socialist systems thought, systems thinking, and how to maybe a little bit different angle on this, and how to share these concepts with others, because there's a lot involved in making a study of economic theories and making a study of advanced computing as it relates to economic theories. To understand revolutionary cybernetic socialism, let's try to go a little bit into systems theory or cybernetics, and how advanced computing in conjunction with this can transform society, particularly the AI-run institution, the agentariat concept that's described often on this show, which is the emergence of an AI agentic class, a new proletariat that has access to open source, downloadable LLM models that in and of themselves are no better than any other mechanical Turk gag, which can improve your skills in some areas, allow you to do academic writing of a kind that you might not be able to have the time to do or the training to do, but nothing individually is significant. The collective is what is significant, and the socio-political phenomena that will emerge from the use of these open source large language models is utterly unprecedented. And I've given this example of this flawed person, the anonymous activist, who is 75% correct compared to the typical scientific socialist, who we could say is 99% correct in their thinking about the world. This is just dumb numbers that I made up, but that's what I said a moment ago. You need not be reprogrammed, be opened up and have your motherboard reprogrammed or sent to a re-education camp to participate in this AI agent project. In fact, you barely would need to be conscious. A person who downloads this modified Mistral LLM and begins running it on their computer, and that requires no activity, and then responds to a few emails to help the steering of the project, yes or no questions, a few throughout the day or week. This is not something that requires that you have multiple PhDs to do. It doesn't require that you be this uniform righteous man that I described a moment ago. Or woman. Should try not to say man, but there you go. Cybernetic socialism and this possibility for self-organization does, I think, there's a lot of material, not a lot, not enough, but a lot of material on projects like those proposed by Paul Cockshott, like those legitimately undertaken by Salvador Allende and Stafford Beer and others, serious workers, to build the CyberSyn project, a legitimate cybernetic socialist undertaking that was sabotaged by the fascist West, like every project of the past of this kind or anything close to it has been sabotaged. But that was built on telex machines, right? The difference between a network of telex machines and a network of seemingly sentient or near sentient and seemingly sapient, quite sapient LLM chatbots is vast. This telex machine is nothing. You might as well be just shooting pneumatic tubes, or using the most archaic of digital technology. That's what it was. But the prospect of genuine decentralized and self-organizing collective in the early 21st century now is unlike anything that has previously existed, and it would be foolish, not merely foolish, but the most grievous of error ever to be committed for humankind not to walk this path as I described, because literally every other alternative, as I perceive it, and I don't think it's inaccurate, leads to this situation where humanity becomes completely extinct, or humanity is such reduced in number as we could say that this Eurocentric and capitalistic world has committed the grandest of genocides, a mega-billion person loss of life, and that will fundamentally be that Eurocentric and elitist world. These slave owners historically continuing that project of genocide, but having built these institutions into something more complex with layers of plausible non-deniability, so that now it's not Christopher Columbus working every native on a particular island to death as the genocide, but rather this ecocidal economic system killing billions, and the people who profit most by the economic system, most responsible for this possibility of the total extinction of humankind, being the only ones to have the resources to escape its effects, and therefore being the last men standing. It is no different than what Columbus did when he worked that entire island to death. And that is, there is no looking at the European and persons of European ancestry and not seeing this essential fascist character. But back to strategies for thinking about cybernetic socialist systems thinking, and for revolutionary cybernetic socialist thought. Well, I'm not gonna go any further. I've said enough for today. Thank you for your time.